Welcome to the Fortress Fitness Lifestyle podcast series, where we cater to you mind, body, and soul. In this episode, host Victor Francis is joined by Maurice Henson, MD, founder of MediRoots Medical Group. Maurice's mission is to promote the liberation of humanity via achieving true health and wellness. His practice focuses on addressing the root cause of disease by implementing novel methods that bridge conventional medicine with traditional medical practices. His most recent academic interests involve exploring the clinical applications of cannabis and psychedelics in the prevention and treatment of common chronic disorders like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, depression, anxiety, PTSD, dementia, and cancer. Without any further ado, I now hand you over to your host, Victor Francis.
Right. Good night. Good night. Welcome again to another episode of Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Podcast, where we talk to guests all over the world based on lifestyle diseases and how we could find cure to really help and combat this, what I will call a pandemic in this world today, based on the choices that we make when coming to food nutrition, and the direction we go throughout our life. Now, tonight, I think it's my first, not I think, I know it's my first international guest. So I'm actually excited. As you think everyone catch me fumbling a little bit, it's just based on excitement, right? So when I met this person about 2 months ago on a Zoom, I realized this person is amazing, educational, very knowledgeable, and he has inspired me to ask him to come on this podcast to gracious, to greet us with this amazing knowledge and his personality. Everything is perfect, and he's coming all the way from United States of America, right? So without further ado, Dr. Maurice Henson. I don't know, words can't say how much excited. I'm so excited that I'm a little bit, but it's all good, right? So welcome to Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Podcast.
Peace, my brother. I appreciate it.
Right, and I know you do a lot. So before I even get started, I want to bring on my editor-in-chief, which is Candice Reed Bettel, who is my support, my backbone, my everything for what I do. Right, Candice Reed Bettel, welcome on board. Right, and before we get going, yes. So before we get going, I want to allow Dr. Henson to properly introduce itself because he do a lot, and let the viewers know exactly the kind of work that you do out there in the United States.
Sure. So I'm a general internist by training. So I did my undergraduate, my college years at Johns Hopkins University, where I received my bachelor's in neuroscience. Initially, I wanted to be a brain surgeon until I actually shadowed one and then realized I didn't want anything to do with their lifestyle, but I always remained interested in the brain. And so I got my degree in neuroscience, went back to Philadelphia, where I'm from, to do medical school at Drexel University College of Medicine. After which I went to New York, where I did my residency training in internal medicine at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell. Right. And from there, I worked as mainly as a hospitalist. So meaning I take care of patients who are admitted to the hospital. All right. So that's what I specialize in, acute care, inpatient care. But over the past several years, I sort of stepped away from the hospital setting and expanded into the outpatient, into the primary care setting, because I found that what I was doing in the hospital was sort of perpetuating the same things that I was trying to combat against, and which is the exploitation of sickness rather than the actual treatment of it. I found myself sort of used as a pawn to continue that exploitation. We don't really help people in this healthcare system. We manage symptoms, and we do patchwork, send them back out, knowing that they'll come right back. That's not why I got into it. And so my way out of the inpatient setting was through medical cannabis. All right, I'd always been a staunch proponent of it. I used it as a kid growing up. Well, not as a kid, as a teen, experimenting with it. It's something to do for fun. But then found how therapeutic it was throughout my journey into medicine. And now I educate patients and recommend cannabis for certain types of patients, depending on their medical conditions. And so I'm heavy into the cannabis scene here in New York City. I'm in New York City right now. I'm also in the psychedelic scene. So I think between cannabis and psychedelics, we'll see a complete revolution of the mental health industry. If there's one aspect about our health and wellness that's been completely disregarded and treated inappropriately and inadequately, is mental health, right? Our drugs that we have, they're inefficient, they're unsafe, all right? But we have natural compounds like cannabis and psilocybin and ayahuasca and iboga, which can completely change the dynamic of mental health disorders. And so what I do, in addition to practicing medicine clinically, I do research, and I'm engaged on a scientific level. I'm on the policy level as an advocate. I speak to a lot of different political figures in the city and state, not only in New York, but in New Jersey as well, Pennsylvania. And so, us trying to tackle this pandemic of chronic disease, as you mentioned, is going to take a multifaceted approach. Disease is not just a matter of a biological pathology. It's also a consequence of psychosocial issues also. And so you can't negate these other elements and think that you're actually going to treat the person. No, a person is a compilation of all these things. And so my medical philosophical approach is to address all of these elements: the biological, the psychological, and the social issues. And so that's really what I'm doing right now. And the hope is to build out this practice, which we can scale and we can tap into different markets, different areas of the states internationally. I would love to come to the Caribbean and discuss what we're doing. I'm heavy into diabetes prevention and reversal. All right. Diabetes is not a progressive disease that you have to live with all your life. You can reverse it through diet modification, exercise, proper choices, sunlight, sound, herbs. We can do this naturally without the need for a lot of pills. I'm not a pill pusher. I don't believe in that. It has its place, but not in the everyday use of people. So that's where I'm at now. And, and I'm just building out this network. I'm blessed to have met you on that call. And this is why I do these talks, because you never know who you may connect with. And now you just open yourself up to a brand new network of people who you can engage with. And so I love what you're doing. I support what you're doing. And that's why I said I'll gladly come on your podcast and contribute however I can.
Well, I want to say I'm really interested in what you're doing there, because the way you put it there, Doc, in the sense of how you're tackling these lifestyle diseases. I've never heard it this way down here, whereby you tackle it from all angles. Mostly down on this side, we tackle it just to traditional medicine, which is just pills, and some doctors may mention well, you have to change your lifestyle and what you eat, which we know, but that's just plain. And well, cannabis treatment in Trinidad, I don't think is where it is there for what you're doing there. So we kind of still in the back when coming to treating diseases with cannabis, especially lifestyle diseases. So that's why when you mention you like to come to the Caribbean, I think that's fascinating, and I hope that with God's grace and help, Candace and myself could make that happen. If it's not this year, but 2026, whereby we can have a conference, that kind of thing, where you can educate the people in the sense of in cannabis. Because some of us who on this side, we view that as just a socializing, and we don't have the literature how to treat it, how to use it to treat things like whether it's hypertension or diabetes or whatever disease it have there. And I've always believed, I'm not a doctor or anything, but I also believe these diseases, which is lifestyle diseases, can be reversed. It's just that knowing how to is really the challenge. Lack of information over at least on this side, we lacking. So for what you're doing there, and as I said, you like to do a lot of research. I think that is the key to really finding the alternative cure for lifestyle disease, that seem to be like they don't have any cure, because it seems to be going from generation to generation. And some people met me and said, but Vic, my grandmother had it, my mother had it, well, I guess it's my turn. And they just wait for it to come, you know. So it's lack of information, lack of knowledge. I think we suffering here in the Caribbean, not just in Trinidad, because the language, again, that I hear you speaking there is very interesting, because I myself have never really get involved or have any kind of interaction with, with cannabis, something like that. So I am actually a toddler in that field, So any information, would really, really help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, believe it or not, I think the U.S. likes to purport that we've got this advancement in cannabis, no, but we're far behind, especially like Europe. We're far behind the eight ball when it comes to our understanding and use of these natural therapies like cannabis. It's still illegal here in the U.S. federally, and so proper research isn't really able to be designed and executed, because of these federal prohibitions. But at least in New York State, we're pushing to relax these these restrictions and put agencies like the Office of Cannabis Management behind the research and behind opening dispensaries and things of that nature, so that we can start to study it appropriately. But yeah, absolutely right. Most people just view it as a way to socialize, something to get high from. And yeah, you could do that. And I'm not knocking that, because I understand. I did it when I was, coming up. So I'm not gonna be a hypocrite here and say, oh no, we shouldn't be doing that. It's a place, it's a time and a place for it. But we also have to understand the medicinal and the therapeutic element of it.
Yes.
And more so, we have to understand the spiritual aspect of it. I think that's the biggest piece that we're missing in medicine, is spiritual, because we're a composition of mind, body, spirit. But Western medicine completely negates the existence of the spiritual self, because it can't measure it. It can't see it, it can't touch it, taste it, smell it, hear it. And so it acts as if it doesn't exist. But we are spiritual beings before anything. So to disregard the spiritual self from wellness only renders the body sick. And I think things like cannabis and the psychedelics, they are spiritual tools first. And through that, helps to mold and correct the alignment of the body. And that's what I'm really trying to get at, is bringing that spiritual element back to medicine, because that's what we're missing most. And, there's a huge population that's coming about that understands that. And slowly, I think science is getting around to it, because there's no separation of science and spirituality. That's just because of our inability to fully comprehend the big picture. There's no separation between these two. And our ancestors knew this.
Yes.
Our African ancestors, they understood the spiritual significance of everything that we did. And so we need to get back to that. And I don't know if you're going to bring up the question that you proposed, because I thought it was a very thought-provoking question as to why we want to maintain the diet, the traditional diets that we have, and still be healthy. How come we can't do both and be? It's because we've forgotten a huge piece of who we are. And it's done purposely. The westernization of African people is the reason why we're so sick. We're not inherently sick people.
Correct.
It's because we've adopted a lifestyle that's not congruent with how we evolved.
Correct.
We've taken somebody else's diet, someone else's way of living, and now we're sicker from it.
Yes.
And so if we got back to our natural state, our natural way of doing things, reconnecting with the earth, getting back out into the sun, getting active again, praying, meditating, getting back to that, then I think we'll get back to being healthier people.
And based on what you said, Doc, is that when we read the Bible scriptures, we hear a lot about fasting, praying, right? That's two of the things right through the Bible, and rightly, as you said, we move away from the cure, which is in the herbs. The cure is really in the herbs, because those people still live to 9 something, 500 and something, right? And we move away from that and we go on fully processed. And in our country here, there's all the fast food outlet that you all have out there. Most of them, not all, like the McDonald's, the KFC, and those people. They are in Trinidad here. They have 45 branches, this and that, because we adapted the American lifestyle, and that's why our diabetes and our hypertension and everything else is sky high, because we move away, as rightly as you said, from the traditional way of eating to the Western way of what was sold to us, right? And we just gone that way, because someone said the other day to me, they said, Vic, you know, the carbs that the God give us, we move away from that to, you know, we go to processed food, you know, the berries, everything natural. We move away from that. The animals move away from that. Now they're making chicken parts in labs, right? And the same set of people who turn us away from the natural eating is the same set of people, you know, who given us the medicine to try to combat what is, you know, so which is really kind of ironic, right? And usually any doctor or anybody who pushing alternative medicine, as you should know, you know, they tend to push you aside, you know, blacklist you and some other things sometimes. You know, so it's very interesting. Yes, the world is evolved, and a lot of people are realizing that, you know what, I think it has some sense in people like yourself who actually are speaking and promoting people to go more on the natural side, because I met a lot of people, a few people while in Trinidad, who came on my podcast who had overcome natural diseases and cancer and certain stuff, and all of which choose the natural way to get healed. All of which I haven't met anyone who have, you know, beaten cancer that didn't went the natural way, you know, and the testimony is awesome, you know. And even when I look at Podcast Away, those people giving testimony based on what the herbs have done for them, you know. Yes, the big platform probably will try to suppress it, but sometimes some leaks, and you know, the story is amazing. But yet we know there's a bigger conspiracy when coming to big pharma. We know that. Yeah, we know that.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's a big thing. So what I want to ask you, Doc, is that when the cannabis is concerned, I'm very much interested, because, you know, I have family members, you know, a sister of mine just lost 2 toes based on diabetes. You know, I've been trying, but the mental adjustment, you know, the people not willing to make that mental adjustment, by changing the things that they eat, even though they know that it's not adding to the condition with, you know, what they have. They just, you know, they're just not making that shift. They're not willing to even cut down the sugar or the flour, or they're not willing. They rather just pop a pill for the rest of their life than make that. That's what I've seen. They rather pop a pill than make that lifestyle change. So I don't know how we brainwash like this, whereby we rather to, you know, instead of you know, say, you know what, I really want to get healthy 100%, or I really want to make this change, to try at least give themselves a chance to really, as you said, it have people that beat that lifestyle disease. But I think the difference between the persons who overcome the lifestyle diseases like diabetes, as you mentioned, is people who made their mind up and say, you know what, I believe I can be this and make the change. If you don't believe you can do something, you wouldn't really, you know, try, you know. So you know, I'm with you on this side, you know, myself, Candace, we are with, you know, we trying with people, you know, we having seminars, we having symposium, magazine, podcast. I post videos. I really try to really encourage people to just, you know, cut down at least, you know, if they're unwilling to even cut off, at least cut down on some of the things that they know that contribute to, you know, diabetes in particular, because that is number 1 in the Caribbean here, right? Second, you know, second probably cancer or something like that. But diabetes seems to be killing us out, and it's even coming at a younger age now. I don't know what is out there, Doc, but I met people in the 30s who have diabetes.
Yeah, well, they're saying now, they just came out with a report, 1 in every 3 teens here in the U.S.
Oh,
diabetic.
Yeah.
One in every three. That's crazy.
That's madness. Yeah, that's madness.
Crazy.
That's
But
and
I mean, you brought up a lot of good points, and a lot of good questions here. And I always, oftentimes when I give a presentation, I give a talk, I ask the audience, what's the three leading causes of death? The three leading causes of death. And most people will say heart disease and diabetes and cancer, and you're not wrong, but you're not right in saying that, right? Because I didn't ask you what diseases have been
yeah.
I said, what are the three leading causes of death? And when you really look at it, convenience, okay, convenience, disinformation and misinformation, and ignorance, right? These are the three leading causes of death. If you think about it. Now, let's look at the first one that I talked about, convenience, right? Fast food. It's convenient to go someplace and only wait a couple minutes to get a whole meal, than to cook it yourself, right? It's convenient. We have Uber here, and all these things that you can call. They pick you up at your door. You don't even have to walk out your door. You don't have to, you're not walking anymore. You're not getting on a bus, or train, or whatever the case may be, right? It's convenient to pick up your phone, right, and have that be your source of information rather than read a book. All of these things are put in front of us as a convenience, but at the end of the day, actually serves to our detriment, right? Even the idea of buying your food at a grocery store, we got supermarkets now, right? That's a convenience, because now you no longer have to grow your own food. You no longer have to herd your own animals. It's a convenience. If you had to grow your own food, you wouldn't be obese. You wouldn't overeat. You got to wait for that food. You gotta ration that food. You're not gonna overeat, right? So all of these conveniences are actually leading to our unhealthy ways of living, right? And so the first thing is to recognize, like, wow, so why do they make these things so easy for me to obtain? Well, perhaps that's part of the trap. You have to recognize that.
Yes.
Because they're very cunning. Because they don't want to have the reputation and the bad reputation of killing people, right? They're not picking up a gun and killing you, but they're laying out traps. They're like, oh yeah, go to this liquor store on the corner, go to this social, go to the fast foods, take my Uber, take my whatever the other ones are. And now you fall into that trap. You fall into this lifestyle of convenience, and from that comes health complications.
Yes.
So now the other branch of their industry now swoops in. Oh yeah, you've got this disease now after making all these poor choices that I tracked. Here, take my medicine.
Yeah.
Society is creating its own patient through conveniences.
Well said.
So we have to recognize that. Then misinformation and disinformation. Now everybody with a microphone or a camera, now they're an influencer. They're an expert. They read one paper or to one lecture, and now all of a sudden they're an expert. And people believe them because they're entertaining, they're attractive, they're celebrities. Now we believe them, right? But it's not necessarily credible. And just because someone calls themselves doctor and wears a white coat and has the degree, that doesn't make them credible either. Yes. I know a lot of unintelligent, educated people. You understand? So we have to become more prudent about how we source our information. Seek out our own. Be active seekers of the truth. Don't just look at your phone and take that for you. Yeah. Go read whatever they're commenting on. Go read the actual study.
Yes.
Take time. And I know it's different. It can be challenging, but it's not impossible. We're not dumb people. We just oftentimes don't take the time to learn the truth. Be active seekers of the truth. And then the last part is ignorance, not knowing. The thing that we're most ignorant about is our own power. Society has told us, hey, you know what? We know that you don't have the willpower not to eat the food that you know you're not supposed to eat. We know that you don't have the willpower or the desire to go outside and take that walk. We know that now you can't go outside and enjoy the sun because we got you trapped into our 8 hours a day working, 12 hours a day working, right? So here, take this medicine because I know you can't accomplish what you need to accomplish on your own. But no, we have the power to change everything that we need to change in our lives if we just realize that we had that power.
Yes.
There's nothing that man can create that comes remotely close to the power of God. And if you don't believe in God, surely you believe in nature. And the thing about nature has the advantage of billions upon billions upon billions of years of evolutionary perfection, which led to our development. We are not inherently sick people. We just make sick choices.
Yes.
You understand?
I agree.
And if we regain the understanding and the knowledge of the power that we have over our universe, the fact that we are the gods of our universe and can literally change the biochemistries that are occurring within our bodies, then we won't need anybody else's medicine. We are the medicine.
Yes.
Mind over matter.
Yes.
And then God put things around us for our benefit. And the herbs were for the healing of the nations. That's Revelations, right? We've got the sun, the most powerful source of energy that 90% of us, or what does it say? The overwhelming majority of us spend 90% of our lives indoors. We don't get enough sun. When's the last time? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's different in the Caribbean, but here in the States, nobody goes outside and walks barefoot in the grass. There's no grass. It's all concrete.
Yes.
The last time you walked in the grass, you sat next to a tree. You know what that's called? That's called grounding. We need to discharge all of this energy that we built up. We need to discharge that into the earth and regain those electrons that the earth gives us. Go take a swim in the ocean. Let that salt water hit your body.
Yes.
You know, we gotten so far away from what's natural that the only thing left for our bodies to do is to become sick. So we have to get back into what's natural. I'm not anti-pharma. I want to make that very clear. It has its place.
Yes.
It has its place, but its place should be used as a bridge, not the destination.
Yes.
We're educated and trained to start people on this pill and make them adherent on that pill for the rest of their lives. I don't believe in that. I think there's a period where you may need the pill.
Yes.
And use that pill until we can figure out the type of choices to change.
Yeah.
So that you no longer need that pill. That's what we need to be getting at. And so, you know, that ignorance piece to me is tremendous. And, you know, the marketing schemes, they spend billions of dollars in marketing to change our psychology. You know, that's why they put these things in our hands so that we're constantly fed this BS that, oh, we have to depend on this pill or this shot to be healthy. No, if you have to take a pill every day, you're not healthy. Not healthy, not well. My whole thing is let's try to reduce. Some people need to be on the pill, on some type of, you know, but let's try to reduce the amount of. I have people common 10, 12 medication. There's nothing natural about that. There's nothing healthy about that. I don't care how good your numbers are. If you need all of those pills to have normal numbers, you're not healthy.
Yeah.
So what can we do? What can we change in your life? How can I convince you? How can I restore that belief in yourself that you have the power to make these changes? That to me is the priority. Restoring that belief, because that belief is such a powerful thing that it actually changes things that happen in the body. We call it the placebo effect. I don't know if you heard that. You know, when they do these studies, say they make a pill that lowers your blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
They'll split the group into two. Group A, they'll give the actual pill. Group B, they'll give a fake pill, right? There will be people in Group B whose blood pressure will drop simply because they believe
Yes, yes,
that they're
yes,
getting the medicine. That's the placebo
yes,
effect. That's how powerful the mind is,
yes.
all right? So if I can get you to change how you think, then I can get you to change how your body responds.
Wow. That's so amazing. That's well said. The challenge there lies that how do we change the way that 95% of the world population thinks that have them sick today?
Well,
That is
during the Black Panther era here in the U.S., I don't know
Mhm.
how familiar you are with it. One of the most famous lines was "The revolution will not be televised." You ever hear that?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm sort of familiar with the Black Panther movement. Yes.
yeah. Revolution will not be televised. Reason being is because it starts in the mind. It's not something that's going to be public. The revolution begins with changing how we think.
Think, yes. Yeah.
So
Well, that is a worldwide challenge, as you know, and as you rightly said just now, Doc, the social media. I often say this. When we're driving on the highway over Trinidad here, you see a lot of banners, a lot of billboards and posters of fast food. The advertisement on TV, radio. These companies have big money for advertising, millions, as you rightly said. But you don't see any ad or any billboard actually, guiding you to a healthier lifestyle in sense of choices. Not even eat a vegetable, not even eat a fruit, not even drink water. You don't see ad saying those things because they, as you rightly said, they're actually trying to keep you sick in a clever way of advertising the things that you shouldn't be eating in front of your face, and that's where the brainwashes come in. Because when I speak to people about lifestyle changes in the sense of cut down on whether it's flour or sugar or whatever the case is, most of the time they say, I know, but there's always a but saying that, I've tried, but I can't. It's hard, Vic. What is the alternative? Yeah, it is so bad now is that even on Sundays now, which I have noticed, usually on Sundays you see a family come from service church and they go home and be eating together. Now, I've been seeing families at the KFC, at Royal Castle, at the fast food outlet, family, husband, wife, kids. Nobody does the traditional meal. It may have just a few people doing it still. So it's so bad now is that the quick way seems to be the right way. And the right way, which is not the quick way, as you said, growing your herbs, growing your fruits and vegetables in the back. Because even here, we have a lot of mountains and greenery, but around the houses are concrete. And, we go to the supermarket to get um, vegetables and fruits. And when you check each basket, the amount of groceries to the size of how much quality vegetables in there is like 99 to 1, right? Just as well as on the plate as well. Because a traditional food meal in Trinidad is starch, starch, starch. I know you might have heard it, anybody from the Caribbean, like whether it's Eastland or anybody who was on that call, is that, on a Sunday lunch in Trinidad, the traditional meal is parboiled rice, is provision, is potato salad, is potato, is Candace probably can help me here.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Is a typical carbohydrate lunch where you eat lunchtime, 12 o'clock, and you eat at 6 o'clock again. That food and with a mug of juice, right? That's a traditional, macaroni pie,
Yeah.
callaloo and pigtail and I see Candace laughing. She know I say it is true, right? So from time to time, that probably could be okay, but that's a traditional meal in Trinidad. On Sundays, and then during the week is mostly fast food, and as I told you, I have been working with the country police service, and the death rate is very high based on cancer because of the lifestyle that they choose to live, because of they claim it's the nature of the job, because is a high stressful job. Plus
Yeah.
they always on the beat, as you know, and they just pick up something here, pick up fast food here, pick up this here. So it leading, it contributing to the overall health, which they dying at 50, at 45, 40, and thing. And I didn't know it was so bad until I became part of that foundation. And it's really sad, because the people who to protect and serve, there's no one protecting them when the time comes. It's really kind of sad, because they and all suffer from lack of information. Because one told me, how can I sit down and have a meal when I'm already fighting crime?
Right.
And that's just one institution, but we over on this side, just as I guess in the States, what I've recognized is the which you singing the same song and speaking the same language, is the information. What is bold in our face is not what we're supposed to be eating or drinking.
Right.
And that is what help brainwashing us. Because remember, we given our kids the phone, the devices from 4, from 5, and they're seeing the same thing that we saw when we was younger. So we just passing on the baton to our children and grandchildren to make the same mistakes that we made as adults, to end up with the same chronic diseases as we are going through right now. Because if the parents make the change, obviously they will encourage the children to make the change, because they know what is important and why they make the change. But that is not happening. So we going down a road there that I think we have to find creative ways whereby it's mind, body, and, as you rightly said, soul. Being more educated and more knowledgeable about why and how we was created, and the herbs and the food that was created there for us. We need to go back there, because the man-made food seem to be selling us to our grave faster than we probably should. And there's nobody telling us that. There's nobody guiding us away, apart from people like yourself and one or two people I see on social media, right? Babu Neil and a couple of people who's been talking about, herbs, and the benefits of what is ginger, turmeric, and those kind of things. There's a few handful of doctors, over in your country and global, that talks about. There's a few here too as well, but we're not getting the platform in a big way in order to reach the masses. They are still being drowned by the big organizations who sending the misinformation out there.
Yeah. I mean, you just take this for example, the American Heart Association, right? This is supposed to be like the huge figurehead behind healthy cardiovascular system. I mean, they're pretty much funded by the pharmaceutical industry also, and the dairy industry are big supporters and sponsors of it. And to me, to advocate for the use of dairy in Black people is almost like signing their death, and
Yeah.
and it amazes me. It amazes me how much money and marketing is put into the consumption of dairy. But there are very few hard stops that I have when I talk to patients, because I don't believe in strict anything, to be very honest. But I tell people we have to diminish the amount of dairy that we're consuming as Black people, especially. I mean, we've got studies that come out how dairy increases prostate cancer risk and breast cancer risk by at least 50%. And we die from breast cancer and prostate cancer at significantly higher rates, and so we don't need to consume anything that increases our risk. and it should make sense. 80% of us are lactose intolerant. You know what that means? That means we shouldn't be drinking milk.
I
If we
agree with you.
drink milk, then our bodies would have the necessary enzymes to break it down, but we lose that ability because we're not supposed to be consuming it. We're the only species that consumes milk beyond infancy. I don't think anybody drinking milk. And we're the only species that drinks another species' milk. It just
doesn't make sense.
It just never made sense to me. And there's a lot of things that don't make sense. Like, where do we get the idea that we have to eat 3 meals a day or 3+ meals a day? Now, for someone who's working out and trying to build muscle and all these things, perhaps you need to eat more, but to impose that on the general public is inappropriate too. We didn't eat like that. We didn't eat all day, every day. Again, the convenience. We've got refrigerators, we've got storage, units. So now we have access to food all the time, 24-hour grocery stores, 24-hour food. Now we have access to food all the time. That's not how we ate. We have to get back to our evolution
yes.
of consuming anything. All right. And so, one of the most powerful tools that I use in our diabetes prevention and reversal program is fasting. You mentioned it earlier, fasting.
Yes.
And here's the thing: we've got so much religion as Black people. We love Jesus and we love Allah and we love all these religious figures, but we don't understand what they really stand for. We got all this religion, but no real understanding of who and what God is. Because if we understood God, then we will understand ourselves, right?
Yes.
And the reason why I say that is because even when you look at in our religious texts, we look at the Bible, and I'm a big fan. I read the Bible. Before Moses received the 10 Commandments, what did he do? He climbed Mount Sinai and was fasting 40 days, 40 nights, right? Before Jesus was blessed with his mission in life, what did he do? He fasted in the wilderness 40 days and 40 nights. Now, I'm not suggesting that we fast for 40 days and 40 nights, but I am suggesting for us to get involved in a fasting regimen of some sort.
Yes.
Me, I've adopted the intermittent fast, and we hear a lot about this, specifically the time-restricted eating. So I'll tell my patients or people who join the program, let's try to cut out breakfast, this meal before noon. Cut it out. Have the first meal at noon and be done your last meal by 8 p.m. Nothing after 8 p.m., nothing before noon except for water. Just drink water. I've had about 20 plus people now who have gone through that regimen, and virtually all of them have lost a significant amount of weight. Most of them lost between 6 to 8 pounds within the first month and a half.
Excellent.
Right? Just off fasting, no medicine. I'm not even changing what they eat. Eat what you normally eat. Just don't eat before noon. Don't eat after 8 p.m. And then once you get accustomed to that, because it does take a little bit of adjusting, it's going to take a few days to adjust to that. But then once you adjust to that 16-8, that's what we call it. Now let's try to push it out another 2 hours. The sweet spot for me is to fast for 18 to 24 hours. That's the sweet spot. And watch how the weight melts off. The weight will melt off, because what you're doing when you deprive the body of food, of carbs, of sugar for at least 14 hours, it switches from burning sugar for energy to burning fat for energy. And your body actually prefers to burn fat because it's a far more efficient source of energy. You get about 6 to 10 times more energy in units of ATP burning fat than you do glucose, than you do sugar. All right. And so I impose, or I attempt to impose on people, let's really start re-embracing this idea of fasting. That's one of the most powerful spiritual tools that we see throughout the Bible, throughout the Quran, throughout the Torah. All of our religious texts talks about fasting almost as much as they talk about prayer. All right, and I think this is a tool that we have to get back to. And then we can talk about changing what you eat. Everyone talks about the sugar, the sugar, the sugar. Diabetes is actually not a disease of too much sugar. It's not. It's not. We diagnose it by elevated sugar, and we treat in order to lower the sugar, but that's not the disease. The elevated blood sugar is the symptom. All right. If you really want to address the root cause of diabetes, you have to get at reducing inflammation. Inflammation is the driver of virtually all chronic diseases, which include diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, dementia, cancer, depression, anxiety. It's inflammation, right? And so, when you talk about reducing inflammation, changing the diet is one element, exercising is another element, getting proper sleep is another element, stress relief is another big element that we oftentimes disregard. And so, we really have to get back to addressing the root cause of the problem. Hits the name meta roots, right? So
Okay.
Problem, and not just addressing symptoms.
Right. So I think there's a question there. I think go on to pop up. But I think basically the question is the PCOS. That seemed to be a big thing down here. I had a couple of people came on the platform, women, right? And in Trinidad here, it seemed to it's like a taboo, a proper treatment, whereby a lot of women want to get pregnant, and it seems like, mostly doctors, well, the PCOS, well, hands off. What is your take on that in the sense of, natural medicine, lifestyle change to make it possible? What is your take on that?
Yeah, definitely lifestyle change is going to be the most important with PCOS. So PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, right? So again, you have to understand what the underlying driving force is. With PCOS is a disease of insulin resistance, just like diabetes, right? So for me, the treatment strategy for PCOS is going to be the same as it is for diabetes, type 2 diabetes, specifically type 2 diabetes. So fasting, very effective in PCOS also, right? Because what ends up happening is when you're insulin resistant typically because you have too much insulin in your body. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's the way the body works. When the body is exposed to the same thing over and over, it becomes resistant to it and no longer responds to it the same way. All right. PCOS is a disease of insulin resistance because it's a disease of hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin. All right.
Okay.
So the best way to reduce the amount of insulin exposure in the body is to fast. All right. So if I can get a woman who has PCOS to fast consistently, and again, I'll bring this point up too, consistently, same time every day, go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time, exercise at the same time, start to synchronize your body's biorhythms, what we call circadian rhythms. Now I can increase the likelihood that you'll ovulate, because the reason why women with PCOS have a difficult time having children is because their ovulation cycles are off. All right, it's not consistent. Their body is not working on this circadian rhythm. And so what you want to do is you want to try to synchronize your body's circadian rhythms as much as possible, eating at the same time, sleeping at the same time, getting up at the same time, and fasting, incredibly effective. Fasting would be an incredibly effective tool to increase the likelihood of conceiving if you're diagnosed with PCOS. And I've actually worked with 2 women with PCOS and one who had large fibroids in addition. And this same is true with fibroids. Fibroids is a pathology of inflammation. You reduce the inflammation, you reduce the insulin exposure, it shrinks the fibroids.
Okay, so apart from diet and right, so also someone is asking again, just like Andis before, how can someone connect with you, from down here, Caribbean?
Yeah, you could go on the website, www.mediroots.com. That's MEDIROOTZ.com. And you can set up an appointment with me. We can do consultations. We can, to me is really about pointing people in the right direction. If you're overseas, it's not going to be a matter of me collecting your insurance and things like that. We can talk. If you decide you want to continue with me and have me follow you, then we can always discuss compensation. And
Station,
yeah. Problem. Yeah.
Someone asked, right? They're over the age 40, right? And how do they? What was the difference between premenopause symptoms and symptoms of other health issues over 40, right? So like basically like they're over 40 and they're having what they will consider premenopause symptoms, but they probably have other health issues as well. So there's any specific symptoms or the premenopause that women should actually look out for? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand the question.
Yeah, I mean that. So I'm gonna be very honest. That period, the perimenopausal period, is a very challenging time for women, and a very challenging time for medical professionals also, because your body's going through a lot of hormonal changes, and the hormones, your body's hormones, are really the drivers behind how it functions. So when they're erratic, like during that period, then the body behaves erratically, and you'll get all these people to come on and call themselves experts and say, hey, you should take this, you should take that. But it's really going to be person dependent, because not everyone exhibits the same perimenopausal symptoms. Like you mentioned, you may have other underlying issues going on concurrently. So which do you address first, and how do you tackle that? It will be impossible for me to sit here and give one, okay, this is what you need to do for women. So it's a great question, but it would have to be something that we really sit and chat about and figure out what's going on, looking at your levels and seeing what your history is, and then coming up with a game plan for that.
Yeah. So there's a next question where all right, before I said this one, I seen on the screen there. So you believe diabetes is reversible?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done it myself. I've taken people who were in the diabetic range, A1C is greater than 6.5, and now their A1C is undetectable. Absolutely. And again, that's another thing that we're told, right? That diabetes is a progressive disease. Once you're diagnosed with it, you always have it. No, that's not true. Diabetes, you have to understand too, we come up with these arbitrary numbers, right? A1C is 6.5, a fasting blood sugar greater than 125. What does that mean? Where do they get these numbers from? What is it? That's not the disease.
Yeah.
That is not the disease. Diabetes is a process. It's not a finite thing that you can say, okay, you have it and then you're going to have it forever. No, it's a process. So just like the process can move forward, the process can move backwards.
Yeah, understand.
And so that's why I want us to get away from this idea that diabetes is about sugar. No, diabetes is not about sugar. The sugar is the elevated blood sugar is the symptom. All right. When you really want to get to the bottom and control diabetes, you try to control the driver of diabetes, which again is inflammation and insulin resistance. And those two things go hand in hand. Inflammation causes insulin resistance, and insulin resistance worsens inflammation. And so you have to address those things concurrently. And yes, you can do it by reducing the amount of sugar that you expose your body to. But even that is not the same thing, because not all sugars are made equal. Right? You have refined sugars, which are bad, and then you have complex sugars, which you find in fruits and your sweet potatoes. These are complex sugars. That's what you want to eat. right? When you look at now, and I know there's some other questions. I just want to make this last point. When you look at, say, the people in Japan from Okinawa, what they call the blue zone, the healthiest people in the world, right? They call
Yes.
these people blue zone people, right? They live to over 100. They're still functional. They're riding bikes. They're just really healthy people. When you look at their diet is mostly carb.
Yeah.
Their diets are 70 to 80% carbs, but you know what? They're eating fresh, whole carbs. They're not eating refined carbs, the flours, the sugars. No, they're eating the sweet potatoes. They're made their staple meal in Okinawa is their purple sweet potato. Okay, that's a starch, but it's a
Yes.
complex starch.
Complex starch.
But and they're also in the sun. They're also,
Yes.
exercising and walking.
Exercising. Yes.
You understand?
Yes. Yes.
And when you look at our ancestors, our diets were mostly carb, rice, potato. It was mostly carb. And then we did
Yes.
fish, and then we did occasionally we did meat. All right, but it was mostly carbs. But it wasn't a detriment to us because we're out in the sun. We were highly active people. We're burning those carbs just as much as we were consuming them.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
And whilst you saying that diabetes is reversible, which I believe, which I've said on my platform, anything is reversible. But here we have been told diabetes and high blood pressure is not reversible, actually.
It's not true.
Right? And another thing is that there's someone sent a message to me, said they did some tests, all right, and two things came out of the test, that she have a high level of inflammation in her body, someone over 40, and they did her bone density is much lower than it should be. So the doctor told her that her inflammation is extremely high, and her bone density is very, very low.
Yep.
So is it connected?
Absolutely. So there was a brother here. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with them. We call him Dr. Sabi.
Yeah, of course. I'm very familiar with him.
Okay. So during his time, he used to always preach that we need to eat alkaline.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That we need to eat alkaline. That we have to avoid acidic foods. Acidic foods. Your most acidic foods. Your dairies, cheese. It's one of the most acid-forming foods. All right. Meat, acid-forming food. Okay. And what ends up happening is that high acid foods trigger inflammation.
Oh.
Okay. High acid foods trigger inflammation. Now, just so I explain this in a stepwise manner, when your body has a higher amount of acid in it, it doesn't like its pH to be acidic. All right. This is why we have kidneys. The kidneys reabsorb bicarbonate, which helps to neutralize the acid. And we breathe. When we breathe out carbon dioxide, we're breathing out the acid. Okay. So the way that the body compensates for, say, if you have a high acid diet, you'll breathe it out and your kidneys will reabsorb it. The other mechanism for how the body neutralizes the acid is that it pulls basic elements from your bones, because your bones are made from calcium phosphate. So phosphate is a buffer. It neutralizes acid. So when you have high acid in your body, it pulls from your bone. That's the connection between inflammation, or I should say, high acid forming foods, inflammation, and low bone density.
Well, that is very interesting, right? I think I have one more before we wrap up here. All right, and it's based on the kidneys, right? What is the but we have more than one. What is the best remedy or herbs or way to flush your kidney, right? From toxin based on multiple small to this person was diagnosed with a few small kidney stones, 2 millimeter in
Mm.
size. Yeah, so
Uh,
they, yeah.
yeah. That's also we also see kidney stone development in like these high acid diets. This is why we tend to tell people to stay away from a lot of meat and seafood and things like that. Uh,
Mm.
I would suggest the first biggest thing, hydration,
Ah,
right?
yes.
Plenty of water, but also you have to reconsider our source of water. Bottled water is actually not the most hydrating form of water, right? The most hydrating form of water are the ones that we find in our fruits, in our vegetables. All right.
Mm.
The energy state of the water that's contained in fruits and vegetables is a much higher energy state than bottled water. All right.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I like to use the phrase "eat your water." Don't drink
Oh,
your water,
yeah.
eat your water.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, eat your water. But definitely hydrate, and
Yes.
also you can consume things that help to flush the kidneys also, because the kidneys, they form urine, and you're peeing out a lot of the toxins. So
Right.
dandelion root is a really good diuretic. This is what we call diuretics, diuresis, getting rid of the urine.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of that. Big fan of green tea, big fan of black seed oil. Black seed
Oh,
for the
yes.
kidneys, good for the liver also. All right. So I would start there. Consider hydrating, whatever source of water, but especially your fruits. Okay. Dandelion root, black seed oil, I would say, are really good.
Cranberry.
Cranberries, absolutely.
Okay,
Cranberry,
okay, okay, okay.
absolutely.
That was the last for what I have here and what and this would have asked. So, Doc, I know. I mean, you have fast. I mean, your knowledge and I like your approach to helping people. Is 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 really a combination of traditional and non-traditional, which we need to explore. We all need to explore that because when we look at the traditional or the I never say call it traditional, but the go-to I should say is not really helping. It's really a plaster on the soul, right?
Right.
And people actually are not, which I know a few people here well. As someone said with the PCOS thing, I didn't know personally it had so many people, women suffering with that until I started this program. I really didn't know. A couple came on the platform and you know I realized that it's really high in numbers,
Right.
and getting results seem to be close to next to none, at least over here, for the women that I know who have it and trying to get pregnant. So you would recommend fasting, proper sleep, and watching your diet or changing your diet or tweaking your diet, right? In order to put your obviously probably losing some weight, I believe, right? That probably will put you in a position to balance your hormones because the hormones, as you said, is erratic. Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
Especially
So
insulin, doing things to lower your insulin levels.
okay, okay, all right. So I hope the viewers who put that there would have heard that, and you all could try to at least because I know there's a very personal, sensitive topic for
Yeah.
women, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of pressures apply on them in their home and their marriage and their relationship in that situation, right? But Doc, I think I think based on Candace, my editor, I know she would have asked this question before. We over here would like to have, you know, someone like you. I mean, we'll deal with that come 2026 to see what can happen, right? And whatever promotion we can do on our platform, for people to really reach out to you and dialogue and seek additional information. We will do whatever it takes on this side, and you could take it from there, you know,
Sure.
and to bridge that gap between Caribbean and where you are, because
Yeah.
even though the cannabis is still, not as where it's supposed to be in America or New York, is far below over in Trinidad here, because we don't have the literature, we don't have, practicing doctors who really probably seeking all the knowledge and the literature to how to treat these lifestyle diseases using cannabis is more, as I say, is more, you know, which everybody take a pull here when they're young, but they really can't connect it to really solving medical or lifestyle diseases. So I'm very interested in that. And if we could have you at least once a month, once every other month, to come and pick out different topics to just focus on this alone, I think it will help grow. It will help grow the audience in connecting with you, because what we do here is really connect the population with people who can help them, because they suffer from lack of information, right? So I just want to thank you, first of all, because I know time is up. I want to thank you, Doc, for, first of all, taking the time to come on the platform to really share your knowledge and, reach us with your expertise, your presence, your knowledge. And it was well received by me in particular, because I am in the knowledge seeking business of whatever I learn from people like yourselves, qualified and skilled persons. I can help pass that on or connect them to people like yourself, because there's a lot of sick people who just don't know where to turn to and who to turn to, and I will continue to spread the word. Over here, I'll continue to recommend, and I'm glad that you mentioned your handles, which is on Instagram and your website. I know Candice will put it up on our page during the course of, over the weekend, because that's what she do, and that's why, she would have asked you for it. And we will keep in touch, you and I have your email address, I know, and we'll keep in touch, and we will try and see what could happen 2026, because it will be very interesting to have your presence over here in a conference talking about cannabis and how you could connect it to wellness. I think that really is an interesting conversation. So, Doc, I just want to thank you again. May God bless you and your family, keep you safe, and give you the strength to continue doing what you're doing. And on behalf of myself and, well, before I say Candice, I think you should come on and send Doc off as well, because I see you there, right? So say something before I close off, please.
Hi. I was just enjoying the conversation from in the background. I didn't want to come back on. But it was definitely informative. Thank you for joining us, and we will definitely be having you on again. So I encourage folks who are catching the replay, tell a friend, tell your auntie, tell your neighbor, your uncle, your brother, let as much people as we get to come out to hear these conversations and get the information so that they can make informed decisions with their health. It's imperative. So thank you so much again, Dr. Hinson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you again. And this is on YouTube, Doc. So, I think I will send you the link. You can share it. And so you can go on YouTube and see, look over this conversation, this interview, and I share it to my people. And I'm pretty sure one or two will reach out to you via social media. Yes. So again, Doc, have a blessed night, and
all right, you as well.
Take care of yourself and keep up the good works. Yes. Right. So people, again, have a good night.
And MediRoots Medical.
See you next week.
Thank you for watching. This episode was brought to you by Virgiscope VA Services and MediRoots Medical Group.